The story begins in early autumn, under a sky the color of wet ash. The Harris family, David, his wife Claire, and their 12-year-old son Ethan, were moving to the outskirts of a small town called Red Hollow. The house they bought had been abandoned for decades, hidden at the end of a road that didn't exist on any modern map. The locals called it the Wilford House. No one could remember who the Wilfords were, only that one day they vanished, and time simply stopped there. David didn't believe in rumors. He believed in fresh starts. When they first saw the place, the realtor refused to step inside. "You can look around," she said, forcing a polite smile, "but don't stay too long. The foundation shifts." She handed them the keys and left before the door even closed. Inside, the air felt heavy. Old wood, damp stone, and something faintly metallic, like rust or blood. The clock in the hallway had stopped at 12 o'clock, both hands perfectly aligned. Claire laughed nervously. "Creepy timing," she said. David smiled, but his reflection in the clock's glass seemed to smile a second later. The basement door was locked with 3 separate latches. When David asked the realtor about it earlier, she just said, "Some doors are better left alone." He thought it was a joke until he tried to pull the handle. Cold, almost too cold, as if the metal wasn't part of the same house. That night they unpacked. The house creaked and sighed with every movement, as though it had been waiting for someone to breathe life into it again. At 11:47 p.m., Ethan said he heard ticking. David checked his watch. Nothing. But the boy insisted, "It's coming from the floor." He followed the sound to the basement door. And there it was, a slow, rhythmic tick, tick, tick. It wasn't a clock. It was deeper, heavier, like the heartbeat of the house itself. He knelt down. The wood under his hand pulsed once. Just once. He froze. Then it stopped. He told Claire it was pipes. Old houses make noise. But that night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, David found the hallway clock ticking again. It showed 6:12 a.m., but his phone read 4:32 a.m. When he asked Claire, she said the same thing. Her watch didn't match the house clock. They reset it. 10 minutes later, it jumped ahead by 2 hours on its own. Ethan giggled and said, "Maybe time runs faster here." David smiled weakly. He didn't know how right the boy was. That afternoon, while cleaning the basement door, Claire noticed faint writing carved into the wood. "Don't open after midnight." The letters were jagged and shallow, as if written by someone in a hurry or in pain. She called David over, but when he came, the carving was gone. The wood was smooth again. That night it started raining. Thunder rolled through the valley, shaking the windows. At exactly 12 o'clock, the hallway clock chimed once, then again, then once more slowly, almost mournfully. And this time, the basement door clicked, all 3 locks, one after another, and swung open by itself. David grabbed a flashlight. The stairs leading down were steep, narrow, and disappeared into darkness. He could hear faint ticking again, louder now. He aimed the light downward. The walls were wet, breathing almost. The air was thick, humid, and tasted like iron. Then, something strange. At the bottom of the stairs stood another clock. It looked identical to the one in the hallway, except its hands were spinning uncontrollably, blurring into a circle of motion. Ethan's voice broke the silence from behind him. "Dad, where did Mom go?" David turned. Claire wasn't there. Only her shadow remained on the wall. The light flickered once before David reached the bottom step. His breath turned white. The air was colder down here, but not like normal cold. It was still, like the world had paused.
The clock in the center of the room kept spinning, its hands slicing through time like blades, and around it, hundreds of smaller watches, pocket clocks, even digital timers, all frozen at different hours, scattered across shelves and nailed into the walls. Every single one stopped at a different moment. Every single one belonged to someone. "Claire?" David's voice echoed too long, too slow, like sound itself was dragging through molasses. He stepped forward. The floorboards beneath him groaned as if protesting. Then something shifted. A quiet hum, deep and alive. He turned toward the sound and saw it. A figure, not quite human, standing near the far wall. Its shape was wrong, blurred around the edges, like it didn't belong entirely to this time. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the ticking. David raised the flashlight. The beam passed through it, and for a brief moment he saw the basement as it used to be, clean, bright, full of furniture and light. Then the vision collapsed, leaving only dust and darkness. He turned to run upstairs, but the staircase was gone. The wall where it should have been was smooth stone now, cold and seamless. His phone said 12:01 a.m., but the clock upstairs hallway chimed 1:45 a.m. He could hear it through the walls. He called for Ethan again, no answer, only ticking. Then a whisper, faint, familiar. "David." It was Claire. Her voice was soft, trembling. He swung the flashlight around, but she wasn't there. The whisper came again, this time closer. "Don't stay. It feeds when you stay." Her tone was desperate, fading with every word. Her heart pounded. "Where are you?" he shouted. The whisper answered, "Behind the clock." He pushed the large spinning clock aside, and behind it, a small wooden door. It was old, warped, with carvings of symbols he didn't recognize, spirals, hourglasses, and eyes. The moment his fingers brushed the handle, the ticking stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Then, bang! The door upstairs shut on its own, and the small clock on the wall began ticking again, but backwards. He froze. His phone flickered. The screen now showed October 3rd, 1993. He looked up. On the far wall, written in dust, a new message had appeared. "Welcome back, Mr. Wilford." David stood frozen, staring at the glowing date on his flickering phone screen. October 3rd, 1993. It had to be a glitch. It had to. But the air, the smell, even the sound of the world felt different. The buzzing light bulb above him now shone steady, warm, not the weak, dying one he had seen moments ago. The shelves weren't covered in dust anymore. They were full of boxes, tools, and canned food. Everything new, everything alive. He wasn't in the same basement. He was in the past. He heard a door creak above, footsteps. "David, you coming up?" The voice was cheerful, unfamiliar. David turned toward the stairs. They were back, and standing halfway down was a man in his mid-30s, wearing an old flannel shirt and holding a flashlight. The man smiled, like he knew him, but David had never seen his face before. "You're early," the man said, walking closer. "Didn't think anyone else would come tonight." Who "Who are you?" David managed to ask. "Very funny. You always do this, huh? I'm Peter, the one who found it." "Found what?" Peter nodded toward the corner where the strange door had been, but now there was only a wall. Still, faint scratches, shaped like spirals, were visible beneath the paint. Peter lowered his voice. "You've been hearing it too, right? The ticking? Everyone hears it before they go down." "Go down? Where?" Peter's expression darkened. "Don't joke about that. You know where." The lights flickered again. David blinked, and Peter was gone. Only his voice lingered, echoing softly in the air. "We never should have built it beneath the house." David stumbled backward, breathing hard. Everything around him began to distort, the walls stretching, the ceiling pulsing as if alive. He tried to run to the stairs, but this time the door at the top was open, leading not to his modern kitchen, but to a different version of it. Wooden cabinets, old wallpaper, a radio playing faint jazz, and on the counter a newspaper. October 3rd, 1993. The headline read, "Local family missing. Wilford residents vanish without a trace." His blood ran cold. That was his last name. He stumbled to the window. Outside wasn't his neighborhood. It was the same street, but 30 years ago. Old cars, different lights, the air thick with fog. And on the other side of the street, he saw someone standing, watching. A woman in a long gray dress, her hair covering her face. For a moment, he thought it was Claire, but when she lifted her head, her eyes were black, hollow like holes. Then the radio on the counter cracked with static. "Time is not yours." The woman vanished. David backed away, bumping into the table, and felt something wet. His hand came away red. He looked down. The newspaper was now soaked in blood, and beneath it, faintly scratched into the wood, were words he could barely read. "It starts again every 30 years." The clock struck midnight. The ticking roared back, shaking the entire house. The basement door swung open by itself, revealing the staircase downward again, darker and deeper than before. And from below came the same whisper he'd heard before, Claire's voice. "You're almost out of time."
When David burst through the front door, the air outside hit him like ice. He expected freedom, the open night sky, maybe the sound of crickets. Instead, he found silence. Not quiet, absence. The street was there, but not alive. No wind, no sound of cars, not even the hum of streetlights. Everything looked painted, like a photograph too still to be real. He ran down the porch steps, his shoes hitting the old wooden boards with dull thuds. Each step echoed longer than it should have. The houses across the street were the same, yet not. Their windows were black, like eyes watching him. Every mailbox had the same name. Wilford. He blinked, and suddenly the street signs were gone. The road seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. He turned back to the house and froze. It wasn't his house anymore. The walls were older, the paint peeling. All the windows were boarded up, except one, in the attic, glowing faintly red. David whispered, "Claire?" Then, movement. In the yard, near the fence, stood a little boy. 8, maybe 9 years old, barefoot, pale. He was staring straight at David, his head tilted slightly to one side. David took a slow step toward him. "Hey, kid, are you okay?" The boy didn't answer, just blinked, once. Then, with a flat, emotionless voice, he said, "You shouldn't be here. It's not your time." David's throat tightened. "What do you mean? Where am I?" The boy looked up at the red attic window, then back at him. "It keeps them alive. It keeps you alive, too." And before David could ask more, the boy turned and walked toward the empty street. Each step he took left behind a faint trail of ashes. When he vanished, the silence grew unbearable. Then David heard something new, a faint heartbeat. Not his own. It was coming from the ground. He crouched and pressed his hand to the pavement. It was warm, and beneath it, a pulse. The road was alive. The heartbeat grew faster, louder, until cracks spread across the asphalt, bleeding light, red and gold. It illuminated the entire street in a flash, and for the first time, he saw them. Dozens of figures, transparent, distorted, walking aimlessly between the houses. Some held clocks, others just stared upward, whispering. Their mouths moved in sync, chanting something he couldn't understand. Then one of them turned toward him, a woman with long hair, her face half missing. She stepped closer. Her whisper filled his ears like it was inside his skull. "You came back too soon." David stumbled backward, tripping over the curb. And when he looked up, the entire street was gone. Just an empty void stretching into blackness. Only the house remained, standing in the middle of nothing. And on its door, written in dripping red paint, "Time owes blood." The heartbeat stopped. He ran toward the door because there was nowhere else to go. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind him. Inside, everything was different again. The furniture was modern, his phone buzzed, the lights were warm. He was back. Or so he thought. Because on the couch sat Claire, exactly as she was the night before. But she wasn't moving. Her eyes were open, and her skin was gray. David whispered her name, his voice trembling. Then her head turned slowly, cracking as if bones were dry wood. She smiled, wrong, too wide, and in that same calm, gentle tone she used to wake him every morning, she said, "You made it home, David, but not in time."
When David opened his eyes, the world had reset. The morning light filtered through the curtains. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, and Claire's soft humming floated through the hallway, the same melody she used to hum before it all began. For a few moments, he allowed himself to believe it was over, that the nightmare was just that, a nightmare. But then he saw it. The clock, the one on the living room wall, its hands spun backward. Not fast, just enough to notice. Every 30 seconds, the second hand would jump, twitching like a nervous muscle, and every time it did, a low hum passed through the house, almost like the house was breathing. He stood there for a long time, watching the clock tick wrong. Then Claire called from the kitchen, cheerful, "David, can you check the basement? I think I heard something last night." His blood turned to ice. The exact same words, the same tone, the same day. He didn't answer. "David?" The voice came again, only softer this time, like an echo replaying from somewhere else. When he turned the corner, the kitchen was empty. The stove was off. The cup of coffee on the counter was cold. He backed away, trembling. Then he saw her. Claire stood at the window, looking outside, but she wasn't breathing. Her reflection in the glass moved slower than her body. She turned to him and smiled. "Did you fix it?" David whispered, "Fix what?" "The loop," she said. "It doesn't like when you fight it." Her lips were still moving, but her voice was gone, delayed by seconds, like an old film reel out of sync. The house groaned, the floorboards bending under invisible weight. Every light began to flicker, slow, rhythmic, in time with the heartbeat that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He grabbed her shoulders and said, "Claire, listen to me. We have to go." Her eyes changed. They filled with black, like ink spreading across paper. Her smile vanished, and then, in a voice that was not hers, she said, "There is no go. There is only again." David stumbled back. The walls around him shimmered, the colors draining, turning into washed-out gray. The pictures on the wall began to reverse. Him and Claire smiling, laughing, aged backward. Her face younger, then gone, then replaced by another woman. Different hair, different clothes, same smile. Dozens of photographs cycling faster and faster until the frames emptied completely. And then time stopped. No sound, no breath, only ticking. He turned. The door to the basement was open again. A faint red light pulsed from below, like a heartbeat buried under the floor. And carved into the wood of the doorframe, words had appeared, fresh, wet, bleeding. Each loop feeds the house. Each attempt makes it stronger. He screamed, slammed the door, and ran to the front, but the door wouldn't open. Through the cracks of the window, he saw his own reflection standing outside, staring in. The reflection tilted his head, exactly how he did. Then it smiled, and mouthed the words, "Your turn." David backed away, shaking. He knew now. The house wasn't haunted. It wasn't cursed. It was hungry, and time was its meal. He looked one last time at the spinning clock and whispered to himself, "I won't play your game any more." Then he smashed it to the floor. The glass shattered, and from beneath it 1,000 whispers screamed at once. The house roared in pain. The walls bled, and for the first time, the ticking stopped. He thought he had won. He thought it was over. But when the silence settled, his phone buzzed. A new notification. The screen read, October 3rd, 1993, 6 a.m., and from the kitchen, Claire's voice again, exactly the same, word for word. "David, can you check the basement? I think I heard something last night."
The morning sun never felt warm again. It poured through the windows like light through water. Too slow, too heavy, distorted. David knew what day it was before he checked. October 3rd. Always October 3rd. Claire hummed the same tune,
The same birds sang outside, and the same uneasy feeling crawled beneath his skin, whispering, "Don't look at the clock." He looked anyway. It read 6 a.m. The hands quivered, like something beneath the glass was breathing. He sat at the table, unmoving. If the house fed on repetition, he thought, maybe he could starve it. He wouldn't check the basement. He wouldn't answer her call. He'd just wait. The hours dragged. Claire moved through the house, cooking, cleaning, calling his name, but her face seemed to flicker, like a film loop replaying too many times. At one point, she stopped in the doorway and looked at him for too long, then smiled. "You can't stop what's already been fed." And she walked away, leaving faint wet footprints that evaporated moments later. At exactly midnight, the basement door creaked open on its own. David didn't move, but the air changed, heavier, thicker, charged. The ticking started again, low at first, like it came from deep beneath the floorboards. Then a whisper followed it. Not Claire's, his own. "Come down. It's time." He rose slowly, every nerve in his body screaming no, but something else, deeper, older, pulled him forward. Each step toward the basement felt like sinking. When he reached the door, the red glow returned, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He gripped the railing and descended. 1 step, 2, 3. On the 7th, the door above slammed shut. The light vanished, replaced by a dim orange shimmer below. When he reached the bottom, the air smelled of metal and dust. And there, in the center of the room, stood himself. Older. Tired. His hair streaked with gray, eyes sunken, but alive. The older David spoke first. "You're early this time." The younger one, the one we followed until now, froze. "What is this? Who are you?" "You know who I am. You just haven't accepted it yet." The younger David backed away. "No, you're not real." The older one smiled sadly. "I said that too, the first time I saw me." He stepped forward, the floor creaking under his boots. "You think the house traps you because it wants you dead. No, it traps you because it needs you alive, here, feeding it." He pointed toward the far wall, the one that used to hold the strange wooden door. Now the door was open. Behind it, only blackness. That's where it leads. Every night, every life, every version of us ends there. The younger David whispered, "Then how do we stop it?" The older man's voice cracked. "You don't. You become it." Before he could react, the older David lunged, grabbing him by the shoulders, pulling him toward the open doorway. The darkness inside moved. It breathed, and as the younger David fought back, he felt something crawling beneath his skin, cold, alive, whispering in his blood. Then the older David leaned close and whispered in his ear, "The only way out is through yourself." And he shoved him into the darkness. The fall felt endless. No wind, no ground, just falling through whispers and memories, fragments of every life he'd lived before. Claire laughing, the boy in the yard, Peter in the basement, all of them looping over and over, until finally he hit the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in his living room again. Morning light, coffee smell, Claire's voice. "David, can you check the basement? I think I heard something last night." But this time, when he looked in the mirror, it wasn't his reflection. It was the older David, smiling, and the clock behind him had stopped completely. David didn't remember falling asleep, but he woke up in bed, dressed differently,
the sunlight a strange pale blue. The house was quiet again, too quiet. For the first time there was no ticking, no hum, just stillness. Claire was gone. Her side of the bed was untouched, cold. He sat up and felt a heaviness in the air, like he'd slept through something enormous, years, maybe decades. The walls looked older, the wallpaper faded to gray, furniture rearranged, unfamiliar photographs on the dresser. He picked one up. In it, Claire, smiling, holding a child, a little girl. He had never seen her before. His stomach tightened. He whispered, "Who are you?" But the picture didn't change. Then he noticed the frame was dated, October 3, 2013. 20 years ahead. He dropped the photo. It cracked, glass splintering across Claire's face, and beneath the shards something pulsed, like faint light, like a heartbeat. He stepped back, heart pounding. Then the whisper came again. "You missed it. You missed 10 loops." He turned. The voice came from the hallway, from his own reflection in the mirror by the door. It smiled faintly, older, pale, eyes black around the edges. It tried to reset you, but it lost count. David shook his head. "What does that mean?" "You've been here longer than it remembers. It's confused now. So are you." He slammed his fist against the mirror. It didn't break. Instead, the reflection bled, thick black fluid dripping from the corners of its mouth. The reflection whispered, "You're not the first, David. You're not even the last." The room rippled. Colors drained away. The floor shifted, wooden planks turning into cold concrete. He blinked, and suddenly he was standing in the basement again. No stairs behind him this time, only the door, wide open, leading to that impossible void. From inside came voices, dozens of them, all whispering his name. He stepped closer. The whispers grew clearer, each one different, older, younger, desperate, calm. "Don't go in. You'll forget. You already did." Then one voice rose above the rest, familiar, his own. "Listen to me. You're real. Don't let it copy you." He froze. It sounded exactly like him, the version that had been pulled into the void before. "It uses your memories to build itself. Every time you enter, it takes a piece and leaves something else behind." David's breath shook. "What are you saying?" "You think you're the first one to try breaking the loop? You're the 47th. The words hit like a hammer. "It keeps us alive to study how long we take to give up." The whisper faded, replaced by laughter. Low, dry, mechanical, echoing through the house's bones. The ground shifted under his feet. The walls began to breathe again. Photographs fell off the walls, showing hundreds of different Davids, each in a slightly different version of the same house. Some smiling, some screaming, some standing in the same spot he was standing in right now. He stumbled backward. "No, no, no!" His hand brushed against something on the floor, a small broken watch. It wasn't ticking. He lifted it up, and on the inside of the glass, engraved in shaky handwriting, were the words, "The house doesn't eat time, it eats you." Then the floor cracked open. The ticking roared back to life, deafening now. Clocks spinning wildly, gears grinding against each other, the air vibrating. The lights went out. Total darkness. And in the dark, his reflection's voice spoke one last time. "There's nothing left to remember. That's how it wins." When the lights flickered back on, David was standing in his kitchen. Sunlight, coffee smell, Claire's voice. "David, can you check the basement? I think I heard something last night." He didn't answer. He didn't blink. Because now, He wasn't sure if he was the real one anymore.
David moved like a ghost through the morning light. Claire was humming in the kitchen, the same tune she always hummed, the same every loop. But this time he didn't answer. He knew it wasn't her. Not really. He looked around the living room, everything in perfect order. No dust, no cracks, not even the faint hum of the clocks. It wanted him calm, predictable. He whispered to himself, "If I can't escape, I'll destroy it." He went down to the basement. The air was colder, thicker. That smell again, old wood, rust, and something like burnt sugar. He found a red gas can in the corner, half full. His hands trembled as he unscrewed the cap. "Do you hear me?" he said to the walls. No answer, just silence, waiting. He started pouring the gasoline across the floor, up the stairs, through every room. Each splash echoed like a heartbeat. When he reached the front door, he stopped. For the first time, the doorknob turned freely. He hesitated. Could he just walk out? He opened the door. Outside, sunlight, birds, the street. His car parked exactly where it always was. But something was wrong. The air didn't move. No wind, no sound. He touched the mailbox. It was warm, too warm. When he looked down, the letters on it were melting. D, A, V, I, D. The metal dripped like wax. Then a voice behind him whispered, "If you burn the house, you burn yourself." He turned. Claire stood in the doorway, but her face was flickering, frame skipping like a broken tape. "It doesn't die. It restarts. It always restarts." He lit the match anyway. The flame trembled, almost afraid. "Let's see if it restarts this." He dropped it. The gasoline caught instantly. Fire roared up the stairs, racing across the floorboards. Pictures burned. The walls screamed. The air pulsed red and gold. Claire didn't move. She just watched, smiling too wide. "Now you've done it." The ceiling began to twist, wood bending, beams melting like wax. The clocks exploded one by one, spraying sparks like stars. David stumbled back, coughing, trying to reach the door, but the fire wasn't consuming the house. It was rebuilding it. Flames moved in reverse. Charred walls smoothed over, ash turned to paint, smoke folded back into the ceiling. Within seconds, the house was whole again, untouched. Not a trace of fire. David dropped to his knees. The match was still in his hand, unburnt. The voice of the house filled his head, calm and hollow. "Destruction is memory. I can't forget you if you burn." He looked up and saw himself standing in the doorway again. Another David, covered in soot, eyes hollow. "You already tried, hundreds of times." David screamed and threw the match. This time, nothing happened. No fire, no sound, just the faint ticking returning again. The copy smiled faintly and whispered, "You keep thinking the fire frees you. It only reminds me you're still here." Then it stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. David stood alone, the house silent again. Only one clock ticking, louder than before. He turned toward the sound. It came from the kitchen. On the table sat a single burnt matchstick, and beside it a note written in his own handwriting. "If you want to leave, stop trying to kill the house. Start killing the time." David sat at the kitchen table for hours, or maybe seconds. Here the difference didn't matter. The house made sure of that. He read the note again. "If you want to leave, stop trying to kill the house. start killing the time. It didn't make sense at first, but the words pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat, in perfect rhythm with the ticking clocks all around him. Tick, tick, tick. He stood, slowly, and for the first time since the nightmare began, he really listened. Every tick came from a different direction, some fast, some slow, some backwards. The house wasn't just filled with clocks. It was a clock, a machine that devoured hours, days, years, and he was the battery. He walked to the living room. A large grandfather clock stood near the fireplace, swinging like a pendulum on morphine, slow, sluggish, wrong. He gripped the pendulum and stopped it. The air shifted instantly. The light dimmed. The walls seemed to breathe. "Don't," whispered a voice from the hall. "You'll make it angry." He turned. No one there. Still, he felt the house watching. He took a breath, then moved from room to room, stopping every clock he could find. Tick. Silence. Tick. Silence. One by one, the sounds of time died. With each one, the house shuddered slightly, like something suffocating. When he reached the upstairs hallway, he noticed something new. A small door at the end, one he swore hadn't been there before. It was painted white, perfectly clean, untouched by dust or cracks. Above it hung a small silver clock. Its hands moved backwards. He approached slowly, heart pounding. As he reached for the knob, the air grew colder, like standing inside a freezer. The second he touched it, all the other clocks in the house started ticking again, all at once. Fast, louder, unbearable. Tick, 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 tick. He covered his ears. The sound was inside his skull now. The door swung open by itself. Behind it, not a room. A narrow staircase spiraled downward, far deeper than the basement could ever go. At the bottom, a red glow pulsed faintly, like a heart. He took the first step and felt it immediately. The deeper he went, the slower his body felt. His heartbeat stretching between thumps, his breath echoing too long. By the fifth step, he realized something terrifying. The clocks weren't moving slower, he was. The house wasn't eating time, it was stretching him across it. When he reached the bottom, the stairs opened into a circular room. The floor was covered with broken watch faces, hundreds of them. In the center, a giant clock, built into the ground, with no hands. Only a black hole where the center should be, spinning faintly like liquid glass. Inside it, he saw reflections of everything the house had taken. Faces, years, moments, lives. And there, among them, himself. Dozens of him. Some old, some young, all staring back with empty eyes. He fell to his knees, trembling. "This is it," he whispered. "This is where it keeps them." The reflections started whispering in unison, their voices soft but full of agony. "Kill the time, David. End the rhythm. Stop the heart." He looked down. The floor pulsed faintly beneath him, each beat matching the ticking echo above. He pulled a piece of broken clock glass from the floor, sharp, shimmering with strange light. "If I kill the heart," he said softly, "maybe the loop dies too."
He raised the shard high and plunged it into the center of the spinning clock. The world froze. No sound, no breath, no motion. For the first time, everything stopped. Then, a deep, distant groan shook the foundation of the house. Walls cracked. The red glow exploded outward like blood through the veins of the building. Time shattered. David was thrown backwards. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in the middle of the street, outside the house. The air was cool, the sky gray. The house behind him looked normal again. Silent. He smiled weakly. He did it. He finally broke the loop. Then he noticed something else. People on the sidewalk were frozen, cars still, birds motionless in the air. Only he could move. He turned back toward the house. The front door slowly creaked open by itself. From inside came the faintest sound. Tick. Just once. Then silence again. David laughed quietly, tears running down his face. You can't stop time. You just trade places with it. He stepped toward the house one last time, and the door closed behind him.
David stood in the entryway, staring into the dark. The air was still. Dust hung in midair, unmoving, as if even gravity had given up. He didn't remember stepping inside. He didn't remember choosing. But he was here. Again. The walls whispered faintly. Not words, just the sound of breathing wood. He tried the light switch. Nothing. The house had no electricity anymore, no pulse but his own. And that, he realized, was the point. He was the pulse now. The house didn't need to eat him. It had become him. He walked through the kitchen, fingers brushing the counters. Everything was exactly as before. The same mug, the same clock, the same faint smell of dust and decay. Only one thing had changed. The clocks were gone. No ticking. No sound at all. He should have felt relief, but instead it felt wrong, like the silence was waiting for him to speak first. He whispered, "I stopped you. I killed the time." And the silence whispered back, "Then be it." He froze. The floor under his feet shifted slightly, like a heartbeat. Then a faint ticking began again, slow and rhythmic. It was coming from inside his chest. He lifted his shirt. Beneath the skin, just above his heart, something faintly glowed, a dull red light pulsing in sync with the sound. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Each beat hurt, not like pain, but like existence. He stumbled to the mirror in the hallway. His reflection looked pale, older. Every blink took longer than the last. Every breath echoed too loud. He reached out and touched the glass. And the reflection didn't move. It just stared back, then smiled. The reflection spoke first. "You killed the time in the house, David, but you didn't kill it in yourself." He backed away. "No, that's not possible." "You became the clock. The heart had to be replaced. You stopped it, so it used you." The reflection stepped closer, pressing its hand against the inside of the glass. "Every second you live, the house breathes. Every breath you take, it waits." David screamed and threw his fist into the mirror. The glass didn't break. Instead, it absorbed his hand. He pulled, but the reflection held him tight.
You belong here, forever, between one tick and the next. The house began to shift again. Walls melted into corridors, ceilings stretched, the front door vanished. He tried to run, but the floor turned liquid, reflections rippling beneath him, faces of himself from other loops staring up. You always tried to escape. You never remember that you already did this. He stumbled backward, handing hard. The air grew heavy, thick with static and whispers, and from somewhere deep beneath the floor came a slow, steady sound. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Then faster, louder, tick, 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 until it filled everything. David screamed, covering his ears, but no sound came from his mouth. His scream was swallowed by the house, fed to it. The floor beneath him opened like a mouth, pulling him down, through darkness, through time, through every version of himself that had ever existed in these walls. When he finally stopped falling, he was standing again. Same kitchen, same table, same note. If you want to leave, stop trying to kill the house. Start killing the time. He laughed softly, brokenly. I already did. Outside, sunlight filtered through the window, but it never changed angle. It stayed exactly the same. The clock on the wall struck 12 o'clock. Then again, and again, and again. Midnight and noon over and over, a loop of light and dark. David sat down at the table. He looked straight at the camera, at us, as if he finally noticed the audience watching him all this time. And he whispered, almost kindly, if you ever hear ticking in an empty house, don't try to find where it's coming from. It's not the house. It's me.